The 26-year-old Michael Wacha making his second spring training start. As the Astros are in town, we're at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium. His first outing was Monday on the other side of the state against Minnesota. With 2 innings, no hits, did walk a man. And Michael Wacha has spent parts of 5 seasons now in the big leagues and a mainstay in this rotation.
Yeah, very important part of this rotation. I always say he's the bellwether guy. If Wacha goes well, the Cardinals go well. And he's reached a point in his career where he's trying to establish himself again as a 200-inning pitcher through 165 2/3 a season ago. But remember, Michael Wacha was an all-star, Dan, in 2015. And if he can get close to or reach that kind of potential that he has, that would be a big plus to this rotation.
We talked to Michael about being a veteran of this staff coming into this year.
It is kind of weird to hear. I try not to think about it too much, just because I'm still here trying to learn as much as I can every day and trying to pick up as much stuff to, take it to the next level, keep learning and keep building myself to become a better pitcher.
Well, twice he has made 30 starts. One of those was last year, the other 2015. And again, in many ways, as he goes, the Cardinals can go.
Yeah, interesting thought to think about him as a veteran, too. I know that feeling of, you get to the big leagues and you're asking questions all the time. And all of a sudden people start coming to you and ask you questions. It's a very different kind of role, and it happens so quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of games every year, but the seasons really do pass quickly, and he is in that veteran status right now.
George Springer leading it off for Houston, 101 wins a year ago. They went 101-61 en route to winning the World Series. 2 balls and no strikes, and in that World Series, George Springer was the MVP at 5 home runs in 7 games against the Dodgers, and many of their regulars are here today in their lineup. The 2-0 is hit out to center. Tommy Pham going back in makes the catch. Wind is blowing out to right, and it's really a crosswind here at the ballpark. The Cardinals defensively behind Michael Wacha. Arzuna is in left, the former Marlin. Pham in center, Bader in right. Munoz, DeYoung, Wong, and Wisdom on the infield, and Carson Kelly is behind the plate.
I suspect we will see 3 or 4 home runs to right field today. Cardinals during batting practice, even the right-handed batters were trying to get their groove swing to hit the ball the other way. Everything out to left was not carrying a bit, but out to right, all you got to do is get it airborne.
This is Alex Bregman. Slow start to his spring, hitting 154, and a pitch taken high. Last year, 284, popped 19 home runs, drove in 71. Only 23, former college shortstop. But Correa is there for the Astros, so he plays third, and that is indeed a strike, 1-2.
Such a good team, Dan, a good lineup. They've got a good rotation. They've got top guys in their ball. I mean, this is a team that could keep winning. This may not be a one-and-done thing for the Astros.
And the 1-2 is swung on and missed. First strikeout for Michael Wacha.
There are times you need to elevate. Even though Wacha's better down in the zone, this pitch up and in. And, Mike Matheny talks about him all the time as a guy that needs to command the lower part of the strike zone because he's got a sinking fastball. And I believe he's right about that. But every once in a while, you got to challenge somebody up. We've seen that in baseball, Dan, a lot with the launch angle conversation. You've got to be able to get some strikes out and some strikeouts and swings and misses up in the zone.
Reigning MVP, all 5'6" of him, Jose Altuve. This guy, all he does is hit. Won another batting title a year ago, hit 346, and he's won 3 of those in his career. Good start for Michael Wacha. Munoz across the diamond, 9 pitches in the first inning. And after a half inning from Roger Dean Stadium, we are scoreless. Of the Astros, he sends out Brad Peacock. The right-hander had a breakout season a year ago. He was the Astros co-pitcher of the year. As a starter, 10-2. Reliever, 3-0. ERA under 2. Versatile pitcher a season ago.
Well, you throw that great resume out about this pitcher, Brad Peacock, and you realize that he's probably not even going to make the starting rotation. They're talking about using him out of the bullpen, but he is being conditioned to start just in case. He's developed a wipeout slider that led to 161 strikeouts a season ago.
And Colton Wong at the plate, a shift on the infield. Houston shifted over 1,500 times a year ago, the most infield shifts in all of baseball. Here's a 1-1 pitch. There's that slider down and in.
I think that's interesting. You use the phrase infield shift because we just kind of shorten it when we talk about it and only say shift. Outfielders have been shifting since Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth. But it's the infield shifting that we're really talking about.
And when we talk about an outfield shift, a lot of times we say, well, the outfield is shading him to right, shading him to left. Well, essentially it's a shift.
Yeah, and in fact, they are shading him to hit the ball the other way, but they're playing him to pull on the infield. That's not unusual either. There's guys that when they elevate it, they will hit it the other way.
The 2-2 just missed. Wong leading off for the third time this spring. And as Ricky mentioned in the open, it's something that he has talked about in the past wanting to do, but it's either been Fowler or Carpenter, and that'll be the case more than likely this year. Slider again, hit in the air out to center. George Springer shading from the sun and makes the catch. Cardinals line up many of the regulars in there, including Tommy Pham, who was 20 home runs, 20 steals plus a year ago. Then Paul DeJong, Marcelo Zuna, Yadier Molina, Carson Kelly, Jairo Munoz, who had 2 home runs in 1 inning in a game this past week, Patrick Wisdom, and Harrison Bader. Cardinals have been very careful with the workload of Tommy Pham here, especially early on in spring.
He was very frustrated in the batting cage today because he is such a perfectionist when it comes to his swing. Big numbers a season ago. Breakout season for him, obviously 2020 guy, but he's just not quite squaring it up. And again, maybe that's coming from not playing a lot. And I know he's kind of chomping at the bit to get season ready, but there's still 3 weeks to go for that, so there'll be time.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Slider, and he struck him out. Boy, that is a wipeout slider, as you talked about. Nasty stuff there from Brad Peacock.
It was a curveball early in his career, and he shortened it up, and that downward tilt. You can throw that ball to that spot with that kind of sharp break. Very few hits are going to be given up in that situation. He also does not walk many batters. Talk about a guy who's valuable to a staff. Hard to believe, really, Dan, that they're not talking about him as a starter, but that's where they are. That's how deep they are.
And a strike to Paul DeJong. Made the trade for Garrett Cole, so they bolster their rotation. At the end of last season, it was Justin Verlander, so tough to crack that starting 5. Paul DeJong was second in the National League in the ballot for Rookie of the Year. Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers won that award. Aaron Judge in the American League. 0-2 the count on DeJong. Held on to, and a strikeout of Paul DeJong. So 2 in the inning. We played 1 inning. And from Roger Dean Stadium, the Astros and Cardinals, no score. Part by Budweiser. Wherever legendary MLB moments happen, Budweiser will be there. By Shelter Insurance. For your auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter. And by Steak and Shake. Mix and match any 2 items for just $3. Better burgers, better prices, Steak and Shake. Little barbecue here at the ballpark as Carlos Correa digs in. No score here in the top of the second. It's breezy and cool. We have mentioned the other day how hot it has been this part of Florida, and there's a base hit into center. Really warm, close to 90 degrees for a number of the days down here, and it's breezy and actually a little bit cool here this afternoon.
Very comfortable, though. And a nice crowd on hand. They're here to watch, of course, the beloved Cardinals, but also the World Series champions. And as you mentioned, Dan, I've mentioned a couple of times, I love it, the fact that there's so many of the regulars in the lineup today. This will be a good test for both of our starting pitchers today.
Josh Reddick, prior to last season, picked up as a free agent, and he drove in 82. At 314, 13 home runs. And it's not only guys trying to crack their starting rotation, but it's their everyday lineup as well.
Right.
And this is one of them. Josh Reddick. You know, where do you play Marwin Gonzalez and some of the others that are deserving of being an everyday player in that type of playing time? Here's a 1-0 pitch. Blocked nicely by Kelly. 2 balls and no strikes.
Their number 1 prospect is an outfielder named Kyle Tucker, who we saw homer into the wind here at this ballpark. I mean, a stiff wind. And that came about a week ago. And at some point, they're going to have to make room for him, and that's probably sooner than later.
2-0 the count. Popped up to the right side near the Cardinal bullpen. And it is no catch and a foul ball. Not a lot of foul territory down that right or left field line near the bullpens.
So you described that as a pop-up, and it went 325 feet.
Yeah.
And he did not square that up at all, really did not hit it that well, but that's how far that ball carried into that corner, and a little uncomfortable in the corner was Harrison Bader. We're more used to seeing him in center and left. I think he can play anywhere. Just kind of ran out of room down there.
2-1 pitch by Waka. Ground ball, base hit, right side. Correa will stop at second base. And the first 2 have reached here in the top of the second.
Well, you hold the runner on because you don't want him to steal, and that creates a lane that includes the runner for the batter to be able to hit the ball in the right field. Correa had to do a little hop to make sure that ball didn't hit him.
Here's Marwin Gonzalez. Game 2 of the World Series. He had the home run off of Kenley Jansen. And the Dodgers had been 98-0 when entering the 9th until that home run. And then eventually the Astros won the game in extra innings. That was a fun World Series. Game 5 was terrific. Game 7 was fun. Back and forth. Drama.
I don't remember a World Series that I enjoyed as much as this past one in, say, the last 10 years.
2011 was pretty good.
Well,
Ozuna makes the catch.
I'm talking about with teams I did not have a vested interest in. I mean, because that is part of it, Dan. It's a long season, and then you realize that, you know, when you're done, and even from a player's point of view, do you keep watching or not? Certainly people were watching in 2011. The Cardinals won 88 games that year and the World Series champions. We haven't seen a lot of repetition, but I do think the Astros are at least primed to have a shot at being World Series champions back-to-back.
The Cardinals and the Cubs, by the way, the only 2 teams on that list to make the playoffs the following year. So parity in the game of baseball is Evan Gattis hits it off of Waka, and he'll reach, and the bases will be loaded. Mike Matheny just told Carson Kelly to make sure and call time, but let the umpire know this is not an official visit. This would be the quote-unquote medical visit, so not charged to the team.
But on a medical visit, the home plate umpire is out there making sure that it's all medical questions. And that's going to be something we're going to notice, I would think. You can't allow that to happen. He's waving it off. A home plate umpire at the moment is waving that off as a mound visit. And he's waving to somebody up here in the press box that apparently is keeping track. It isn't you, it isn't me. I'm not sure who he was waving to. And there's the mound visit rule. We've gone over it a few times this spring, but if you've not gotten up to speed with it, you can have 6 mound visits, and that includes from players on the field. And then on the 7th one, overall, whoever that is, whoever's on the mound, you have to take the pitcher out.
So bases loaded for the Astros. And they've got their catcher coming up.
former Dodger, Tim Fedorovich. They like him. He's the insurance. They'll probably be in AAA, where he's been a lot of the past few seasons.
And a fly ball. We'll see if this carries back. It does. Bader under it, makes the catch. 2 runners will tag. Throw will go into second, cut off. Run scores. That's Correa, and it's 1-0 Houston. So 1-0 on the RBI by the Houston catcher. And it brings in Jake Marisnick. You may remember he debuted with the Marlins. We saw him a bunch in spring training against the Cardinals. That was in 2013. Traded to the Astros in 2014. And a pitch taken low. One of the reasons that you think Houston could repeat, of the 24 players who appeared in the World Series, 18 of the 24 come back. The departed players combined for 6 at-bats and 2 1/3 innings pitched in that postseason run.
And you look at the core guys. I mean, the top competitors, whether you're talking about Bregman or Springer or Altuve or Correa, you're talking about young players. I mean, it's a young core of players that had the greatest of experiences of being on the field to win a World Series. And so some of the pitchers are older. You think about a Verlander and Cole, of course, younger, and Keuchel kind of in the middle. But when your young lineup, when your lineup is young and elite, you've got to start thinking that maybe they'll win for a few more years in a row, or at least be competitive.
Jeff Luhnow, when he took the job, told Jim Crane, the owner, who, by the way, is in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, that he would build a team that would win back-to-back titles. And it seemed like there was no way that would happen. Remember, they had 100-loss seasons from 2011 through 2013. I mean, some bad teams. As their payroll was cut, they traded veterans and had high draft choices, and to their credit, drafted well for the most part. A swing and a miss. 3-2 the count. Walker would love his second strikeout of the afternoon and limit the damage here.
This is such a good lineup. We saw them a week ago, Dan. They came out swinging that day, and they're swinging here today.
And Kelly could not hold on as Marisnick just got a piece.
In fact, that start that we saw last Sunday was Miles Michaelis, his debut as a Cardinal, and it was a rough one. An inning and 2/3. He gave up 7 hits, 6 runs. And there were fewer of the regular Astros in the lineup, but every one of them, they just put the ball in play. They hit the ball hard, put the ball in play.
3-2 pitch again. Popped up. Chasing after it. Patrick Wisdom called off by Colton Wong, and the catch is made. Marcell Ozuna due up first when we come back. Left and Marcell Ozuna on the right, and Marcell helping out Jose.
I guess a little fashion advice, this coming from a guy with a fluorescent green compression sleeve. He didn't even like the way he was wearing his hat. Yachty in on the, said, I don't know how you dress in Puerto Rico, but this is how we do it in Dominican. We have the flat hat, and I guess they all agree, they all hug and move on.
Times have changed a bit, huh? There's a strike to Ozuna. Does have a home run, batting 167 this spring. He's driven in 2. Coming off a campaign in which he hit 37. Hit out of play, 0-2. Cardinals talk about how Ozuna holds the bat in tight, almost inviting a pitcher to throw inside, and yet his hands are so quick he can make the adjustment. Silver Slugger and Gold Glove winners 2017, Arenado, Goldschmidt, Hosmer, and Marcell Ozuna. Check swing, and he strikes out. So what a start here by Brad Peacock. He has struck out 3 of the 4 that he's seen. Look at the defense as we look at Altuve, Marisnick, Springer, and Reddick in the outfield. Bregman, Correa, Altuve, Gonzalez on the infield, and the battery as well. So the strikeout of Ozuna, and now Yadier Molina. Breaks his bat, slowly hit towards second. Out number 2. I've seen enough that this guy should be in the rotation. That's just me.
Whose?
Let's go get him.
That's where I was going with that. I think Yadier Molina just decided it was a much better idea to swing at the first pitch and not let him get the 2 strikes, because that wipeout slider right now is just unhittable. And love to be a young pitcher like him. 13-2, ERA of 3. He's going to get his innings. There's no question about it. But we mentioned the rotation for the Astros with Keuchel and Verlander. Garrett Cole now, it's just too strong. And the way teams use their middle relievers, you could still be pretty serviceable and pretty important for a guy that can pitch 6th, 7th, and 8th. And he certainly could do that.
Lowest ERAs ball clubs this spring. As Kelly swings through it, 2 balls and 1 strike. Peacock graduated from Palm Beach Central High School in 2006. He was a shortstop then. Drafted by Washington, 41st round of the 06 draft. As a draft and follow, did not sign, and then went on to community college. And Kelly lifts a high fly ball out to left. Marisnick under it and makes the catch. So 6 up, 6 down for Brad Peacock. 1-0 Houston after 2. And top of the 3rd. This upcoming season, bobblehead giveaways, some great ones coming up. Carlos Martinez Mystery Air bobblehead, opening day car parade bobblehead, and more. And bobbleheads can be purchased as a pack or single game tickets, which are on sale now at Cardinals.com. And still a few seats remain for opening day, which is a great tradition in the Gateway City. Pops the glove of Kelly, and a strike to George Springer. Really has been the ultimate spark plug at the top of this lineup. Since 2016, 17 leadoff home runs, including a major league leading 9 a season ago. Out of the University of Connecticut, 1st round pick, first and only 1st round pick from that school. That drops in for a strike. I think anytime we see Michael Wacha, you always notice the velocity, mid-90s, great changeup, and the curveball.
Curveball's getting better. It got better last year. The changeup still is the dominant pitch for him when it's right. And it's offset by the fastball up in the zone. Again, he goes up. He got the strikeout in the 1st inning up. He went up again on Springer. We'll see if he follows that up with something down in the zone.
The 2-2 is hit out of play. The 2-time All-State selection at Pleasant Grove High School in Texas. Went on to Texas A&M. He was 27-7 as an Aggie. Rapid rise to the minor leagues. And a ground ball taken by DeYoung for the out. The batter is Alex Bregman.
Hey, one of the things I like about Paul DeYoung, the Cardinals shortstop, we look at the career starts of Michael Wacha, 112 of those. But DeYoung, who will be working more closely with Jose Oquendo all season long, always seems to get the right hop. He judges very, very well speed of the ball, speed of the runner, and he did that on that last play. It may go unnoticed. It's not a big deal. It's like, okay, he just caught a little ground ball. Well, he made it an easier play by his instinct in how he came in and attacked the ball. He could have played that into an error, is what I'm saying, and other shortstops may have. And I'm not going to say he's got the greatest range in the world and he's Ozzie Smith. I'm not saying that, but he's very steady at that shortstop position. If I said he was Ozzie Smith, I'd be in big trouble anyway.
0-2 to Bregman, taken high.
Mostly from you.
My favorite player.
Exactly.
The Wizard. Nobody messes with the Wizard. Here's a 1-2. He was on these fields. I saw him do a defensive clinic and haven't seen it since, and probably will never see anything like it again in my life. But he was throwing from deep shortstop, and that is a foul ball.
Without looking.
As Ricky Horton was hitting him ground balls, he was flipping behind his back the throws both to second and to Brian Jordan at first on a fly without looking. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in terms of baseball and a guy at short and what he was doing. As he said, he was a basketball player growing up, and he thought that was his time to shine and do it with a little flair.
I can attest to the fact that Ozzie, day after day on the AstroTurf at Busch Stadium, would practice the crazy tough plays. And I think that made him feel, I mean, obviously he was already athletic, but it made him feel more capable of catching any possible ground ball, any situation he could find, because he'd worked on it.
Now let's go back to DeYoung, and I think you bring up a very good point. If he stays back on the ground ball for the first out, that may eat him up, and he comes in and gets the good hop.
And Springer runs well enough, so the first reaction is he comes in and he catches it before that short hop hits him. If he is a tad slower on that jump, or if he lays back, the speedy Springer is going to make that a closer play at first base, and that is all instinct. You have, of course, you have experience goes into that, but I think DeYoung does a lot of the little things right that go unnoticed. And again, there's nobody that notices little things better than Jose Oquendo from a teaching point of view, and one of the reasons I'm thrilled to have him back.
It's a pretty amazing graphic. He'll be the 10th opening day shortstop in the last 11 years for the Cardinals. Here's the 0-1 pitch to Altuve, a little bit low.
And one of those shortstops included in that list is Khalil Green, who the Cardinals got in a trade from a reliever we're hoping to talk to here this afternoon.
That would be Luke Gregerson back with the Cardinals. A ball and 2 strikes on Altuve. Grounded out to third his first time up.
Waka's feeling the fastball today, isn't he? A lot of fastballs. He's also pitching up more than usual. Yeah, to mention that Mike Matheny normally likes him down in the zone, but I think he's trying for that fastball up, change up down. And there it was. To me, it's a better compliment. If it's fastball down, change up down, the hitter's thinking down. Then you just have to guess speed. If you have to think both up and down and velocity, you're asking a hitter to think of 2 things at one time, and not all of them can do that.
The 2-2 pitch. Altuve hits a high fly ball into right. Bader back at the wall, spins around, and it's gone. Carried all the way out of here. Routine fly ball, and Altuve gets the home run. Well, if you're Michael Wacha, not much you can do about that.
No. Well, I predicted before we started today, Dan, that there would be 3 fly ball home runs to right field. And we're 1/3 of the way there. This ball is not terribly struck, but Altuve doesn't think it's out. It's a fly ball to right. Back goes Bader, and about 360 to right field on a ball that on most days would be an F9.
He had 24 home runs a year ago. Here's Carlos Correa. So 2-0 Houston. Altuve, his first home run this spring. Correa singled to center field back in the 2nd inning. 1 ball and 1 strike. Correa last year, 24 home runs, drove in 84. And a base hit, and he's 2 for 2.
I know it may sound, Dan, a little Pollyanna to talk about a pitcher's outing when you give up a couple of runs and 5 hits in 3 innings, which is where Michael Wacha is right here, to make a comment that I think it's been a good day for him, but I really do. I think his stuff has been good, and you know that there's been some base hits that have found holes. The fly ball home run there by Altuve, inning should have been over. Could have been 1 run in 3 innings against the world champions. I just like what I've seen from Michael Wacha despite the results. Sometimes you'll pick up a line score and a box score and you'll think, okay, how did he throw? And the numbers don't always say the whole truth. And I think this might be one of those cases.
There's Josh Reddick at the plate with 2 outs and a runner at first. Good tailing action there.
That's a beautiful changeup. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. There have been a lot of high-quality pitches despite the results. This is a changeup that goes down and away, perfectly thrown by Wacha. And conversely, Dan, there are times where you pitch an inning, give up no hits, no runs, and you pitch terrible. The hitters get themselves out 3 straight times, and yet you look like you had a good day.
Munoz puts it away in foul territory, and he leads it off when we come back. Altuve the home run, and it's 2-0. Ground ball to Jose Altuve, and the Astros had won their first ever World Series as they went 101-61 in the regular season. There's the parade, and a former Astro, now Cardinal, part of that team, Luke Gregerson. Luke, welcome back to St. Louis and the Cardinals organization, and congratulations on the World Series.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
What was it like, that postseason run for you?
Man, to be honest, it's a blur. I don't really remember much. I just remember running on that field at the end and just having the time of my life.
We were talking before that you were highly thought of in the Cardinals organization and then traded for Khalil Green. Take us back to your time in this organization. What comes to mind?
I mean, one thing, and I tell a story a lot to some people that really changed my career, was a guy named Al Holland, who was my pitching coach in rookie ball. Got me throwing my sinker that I throw now, and it just really helped me kind of just take off with my career and start mixing my slider in more. And I mean, before that, I was getting waffled around the yard thinking that I was out of my league.
Jairo Munoz with a base hit out to left, and it's cut off by Marisnick, and Munoz on his way to second base with a leadoff double.
Yeah, Luke, this is Rick. I remember the day when Tony La Russa lost you to the Padres. He was really distraught because he knew, despite you saying you were waffling a bit, he knew what kind of talent you had. Tell us about your outing yesterday. You got back out on the hill again, and how did that go from your standpoint, and how are you progressing this spring?
Everything's going really well. You know, I try to focus a lot on just movement than anything right now. If make sure my ball's moving, in my eyes, the way it's supposed to be, and then I kind of work from there and start working on, consistency and location. But so far, everything seems to be moving, the way I want it to. Kind of lost touch with it a little bit last year, and I think that's kind of what led to some of the struggles. But everything seems to be kind of back on track, and I feel great.
You enjoy closing? Is that something that you would like to do this season if the opportunity arises?
Hey man, I enjoy competing, and wherever that fits me into this team, I'm happy to do it.
Luke, as you come back to the Cardinals, and of course we're thrilled to have you, are there any players that you have a little bit of a reunion with here, guys that maybe you played with in the minor leagues that are still around?
Yeah, actually there's one in particular, Tommy Pham. He was I played with him in rookie ball in Johnson City, Tennessee.
He had a pretty good year last year. I don't know if you knew that.
He did, yeah. No,
you both did.
Definitely aware. I've talked to him a few times, and he's the kid's a great player. He's a good hitter. I'm looking forward to him doing it again this year.
I'm trying to think. Back then, he was probably an infielder, was he not?
He was a shortstop, yeah.
That's right. Luke Gregerson is our guest. How did you develop a wipeout slider? You have a terrific slider. How did that develop for you over the years?
To be honest, it was it was just something I had. Like, I tried throwing a slider one day as a kid, and it was just one of those things that for me I picked up really quick, and it was just a really good weapon for me at an early age. And I utilized it as much as I could for a long time, and I learned how to control it in different aspects, and it's just something that really took my game to a different level once I got here.
So you learn a slider as a kid, and eventually you end up getting a chance to go to the White House with the world champion Astros. I understand you're going to get a chance to go on that trip?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
Luke Gregerson is our guest. Signed in the offseason, back with St. Louis. Why was St. Louis the right choice? I'm sure you had a number of different places to look at, but why come back to the Cardinals?
A few reasons in particular. I definitely wanted to, play for a competitive team, and the St. Louis Cardinals have always been a very competitive team. They focus on winning, and they always have a really good farm system that produces a lot of great players. On top of that, I was also, hoping to be a little closer to home, and being from Chicago, St. Louis is obviously a great choice, and they were one of the first ones to call, and I thought it was important to jump on it as soon as we could, and we did.
Should we bring up the fact, or maybe not the fact, that you are a Cub fan?
Someone lied to you, that's all.
White Sox, right?
I tell everyone the same thing. I was a Chicago fan as a kid. I never really got into the whole rivalry thing about hating all these teams and this and that. I have cousins that do it and won't step foot in Wrigley Field or won't step foot into Comiskey Park. So I think it's all a joke, and I'm just a fan of the city of Chicago, and I wish them the best all the time. But while I'm in the Redbird uniform, it's going to be a different story.
So, Luke, I can tell you've been interviewed before because you just took it right down the middle. That was perfect.
Think before you speak.
Smart move.
Absolutely.
There's a base hit into left by Harrison Bader, who we mentioned in the open has really picked it up. Picks up the RBI. Cardinals get on the board, and it's now 2-1. How about Mike Maddox and just trying to develop a relationship with him, and you figure him out and vice versa?
He makes it really easy on you. I think one of the biggest things for is his communication with all the guys. It's not just you need to pitch like this and here's what you need to work on, and none of that. He's very open. He's funny. He keeps the guys loose. We sit there, we talk business, and we joke at the same time. So, he makes it really easy to get along with him, and it makes it easy just on the players to go out there and take care of their business.
So, being a veteran, are you a prankster at all down in that bullpen, or are you easy on the guys?
I'm all about opportunities. I like to just sit back and pay attention, and if the time arises, I like to have a little fun as well.
One of those sneaky guys, Dan.
I like it. Well, welcome back to St. Louis. Great to have you with us, and we appreciate your time today in doing this. Thank you.
Fellas, appreciate it.
You got it. Luke Gregerson.
Thanks, Luke.
Fun to visit with him. Yeah, you got to be out. You got to be watching those guys in the bullpen. I'm sure you were sneaky, just like Luke Gregerson.
And if somebody would ask me, was I sneaky? I would say maybe. Just look for my opportunities. Just wait, like he said. I learned that from Bob Forsch. Bob Forsch was always claiming to be the great Cardinal pitcher. I would say if you take the top 3 or 4 Cardinal pitchers ever, Bob Forsch has to be on that list. And he was that way in the clubhouse and in the bullpen. He was never starting any problems that you knew about.
There's a strikeout of Colton Wong.
But if you trace it back, he was involved.
And he gave you some great advice about opening day, too, and just what it means to be a guy that is young and being introduced on opening day.
Love the game, love the sport.
And the strikeout there by Smith. And it brings in that former shortstop, Tommy Pham. Well, you can see where Smith would be really tough on the right-handed batters as he drops down, and tremendous movement.
I think he's a good addition to the bullpen. He gives them a different look. They got a lot of hard-throwing guys and a lot of kind of over-the-top curveball slider guys. We've seen Peacock. You think about McCullers and other guys who are just kind of letting it go. But this, Smith always gives a different look from that arm angle.
Well, during the winter warm-up, John Mozeliak said Luke Gregerson is the closer right now, and no changes essentially to the roster in that regard. And Mike Matheny has not been one to say, well, he's definitely the guy. I'm sure, though, he's going to get his chances. Little squibber that's hit to first, and Pham breaks his bat. That's out number 2. You know, it could be mix and match, could be Gregerson. And I think we'll know more as spring training goes along and see how the Cardinals want to play in the final 7 to 10 days.
A couple of years ago, I was at a sponsor event here at the ballpark, actually, in spring training. John Mozeliak was speaking about the Cardinals at that time. And the question came up about the lineup and the bullpen and the roster breaking spring training. And he said, you know, what I really care about is my roster. He said, no offense, but I care about my roster on July 1st. I want to know who we are by then. And you know, who you say is the closer on March 4th or on April 1st, for that matter, you know, doesn't mean as much as who keeps earning that and who keeps seeming like the guy that should be pitching the ninth. You can name whoever you want, whatever you want, but players will earn their spots, and that's going to change. I mean, Cardinals didn't name Paul DeJong the starting shortstop for the Cardinals in March last year. He just earned it. And here he is again, and still earning it. And that's kind of the way the game is. So I'm not saying it's not good to speculate, Dan, but I just think when it comes down to it, the players are going to have to show that they belong in those positions.
Sure. DeJong, first time up, struck out. And as Peacock saw 6 batters, 6 up, 6 down with 3 strikeouts. And now Smith here in the bottom of the 3rd. 2-1 our score. Runners at 2nd and 3rd. And a base hit could put the Cardinals on top. 2 strikes on DeJong. Big crowd this afternoon to see the world champs. Spring training here at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. That's fouled back.
Not only is this a big crowd, but it's a smart crowd. I noticed when you popped out of the dugout
standing O
earlier today, there was a standing ovation just on the outfield side of the first base dugout where the Cardinals are. There was a group of fans down there, and there had to be 50 of them that gave you a standing ovation. I thought that was really sweet.
It was amazing how you put them up to that. Thank you. Out to shallow right field.
Being a little sneaky.
There you go. It felt like I was in a bullpen. You put them all up to it. 2-1 our score after 3. Is with a group. Family and friends get together, and group tickets are on sale now, and groups of 20 or more receive great incentives, including a discount of up to 50% off the gate price in most seating areas. For more details, visit cardinals.com/groups or call 314-345-9000. You put our buddy Justin Meyer to work with those group tickets. Dakota Hudson is the new pitcher for St. Louis.
We saw him almost exactly a year ago, in a spring training game, and there's his numbers from last season: 10-5 ERA, just over 3. So he's a top prospect. But we saw him come in, pitch a game just like this last spring, and he was dominant. He had the hard sinker, and we just saw it there. Good fastball with a lot of life. And Mike Matheny was asked after the game about him, and he said it's eye-popping. It was eye-popping what he showed. And he's got a great future ahead of him, and of course, more things to learn and more experience. But I would put him in the can't-miss category.
Surprisingly, he fell in the draft, 34th overall in 16. He had a dominant season at Mississippi State, always a powerhouse in college baseball. And he signed for an above slot $2 million. And as you mentioned, he excelled in the minor leagues. Fastball is around 94, 95. Right. He can touch 97. The plus slider in the upper 80s, very short and quick.
So think about this year. He was the Texas League Pitcher of the Year in AA, pitching for Springfield, and then got to be a part of the Memphis team last year down the stretch. And that's just experience that kind of really rounds out a really good solid season for him, because he gets to play on a winner on a really, really good AAA team. And again, that's all part of his development.
Last year at Springfield, he had 18 starts, 114 innings, and went 9-4, and then called up, made 7 starts at Memphis, went 1-1. The 2-2. I'm sure there's a familiarity with he and Carson Kelly behind the plate. Those two know each other quite well. 3-2 the count on Marwin Gonzalez. Inside, and that's ball 4. So look at the Cardinals' top prospects, led by Alex Reyes, then Jack Flaherty, Carson Kelly in this game. Tyler O'Neill, by the way, dealing with a sore oblique, so that's why he's been held out of games here recently. Harrison Bader playing, then Hudson, Hicks, who was already sent back to step camp, Helsley, Kisner, and Schrock.
A lot of arms, a lot of good arms on that list, including Alex Reyes, who threw a live BP again today. And I'm anxious to see him pitch. I know patience is the kind of the key for him as he's still recovering. You don't really want, there's no sense in rushing anything with Alex Reyes, but I know he's such a weapon. Mike Matheny'd love to have him back out there sooner than later, but you just have to be patient. This game will make you patient, won't it?
Absolutely. Geddes had a base hit off of Michael Wacha, literally off his leg. And that was back in the second inning, 1 for 1. Big burly guy, was out of baseball for a while. And then kind of a reclamation project, if you will, with the Atlanta Braves. He's got incredible power, can play catcher, can play first base, has even been in the outfield. And in that ballpark, you can hide a left fielder, if you will. The Crawford boxes. Talked
to an executive about Gaddis when he was still with the Braves, and one of the things they said about him when they started moving him into the outfield, it wasn't that he became a very good outfielder, but he discovered an athleticism by being an outfielder that actually helped him at the plate. He felt just looser and more athletic and just not so stiff at the plate. And so the defense didn't actually come through very well. He's not a very good left fielder, let's be honest about it, but the man can flat out hit.
The 2-1 pitch. Out of play, 2-2. If I have a softball team,
yeah,
I might think about Evan Gattis as the number I'd say 1, maybe top 5 pick.
Kind of looks like a bouncer too, doesn't he?
Yeah, you don't want to mess with him. I wouldn't. Would you, with your brute strength? You never know.
Probably not.
Inside, and the count runs full. Gattis is the designated hitter today for Houston.
Hudson's picking a little bit right now, Dan, and he's not a guy that has issues with control, at least at the lower levels, but that's something that we see happen a lot, where you'll go up and guys will lay off pitches that other people will swing at. Then you start to kind of get a little picky yourself, or you're trying to avoid contact instead of just going right at him, and he's trying a little bit too hard to overthrow right now.
So back-to-back walks to Gonzalez and Gattis. Tim Fedorowicz will be the batter with 2 outs. And this will be a mound visit, so indicated by the home plate umpire as well.
Might as well bring everybody in if it's going to count all the infielders going in to have a conversation, because they're going to get kind of lonely this year since they're not allowed to go in on their own, but they're all in. This is not about changing signs, but this is Mike Matheny okaying Carson Kelly to go out to the mound. Carson Kelly looked towards the Cardinals bench. There's the new mound visit rule once again. And he looked towards the bench, and he got Mike's okay. I guess he felt like it was a good idea, and Mike agreed, so he let him go out. But you cannot do it on your own. At least for the Cardinals, that's the way they're doing it.
And the infielders have been instructed with that as well. First pitch by Hudson. That's in the dirt. My partner is not only a part of the 85-87 championship clubs of the Cardinals, he was part of the 88 world champion Dodgers and a coach. And so from your coaching hat, what do you do right now with a young guy in Dakota Hudson who's so close to the big leagues, where these appearances mean something to him in spring training?
Well, yeah, you want him to end up with a good experience today for sure.
That's caught out there in a double play.
And I would tell him to throw one right down to the middle, duck, and give up a line drive double play because Colton Wong is standing right near the second base bag. That's what I would have said. I didn't get a chance to get that out, but that's where I was going.
Sure. Makes all the sense in the world.
And it is a right down the middle line drive, duck. And a 4 unassisted at the end of the play with Wong being right at the right spot. And, you know, you just want him to not lose. And pitchers, it's a lot of it's about confidence. It's between the ears, Dan. I mean, all these guys have good talent or they wouldn't be at this level. And you want him to keep thinking that he is a dominant pitcher and not become reactive. And pitchers need to be proactive. And you need to say it's an offensive position. That's one of the things I talked about as a coach. You've got the ball. You're the offense. I know they're trying to beat you. I know that Astros are on offense right now, but as a pitcher, Bo Milliken taught me this years ago. Pitchers need to realize they're the offensive player on the field. Now, semantically, or maybe in realistically, that's not actually correct, but you need to think that way, that it's my baseball, you're not hitting it, as opposed to I'll throw it up there and see what happens. You just have to be proactive.
0-2 popped up down the right field line and into the seats, a souvenir.
If a pitcher gets caught in the trap of hoping that something good happens, Dan, hope's not a very good strategy. You've got to have a strategy and just go after it with aggressiveness and confidence.
The 0-2. Ground ball and a base hit. So pair of walks, the line out double play, now base hit by Jake Marisnick.
This is one of those times where Adam Wainwright likes to talk about how Jason Isringhausen taught him something that he used during the playoffs with Carlos Beltran at the plate. And he said it's a lesson that pitchers need to breathe. And boy, does that sound like a simple statement. But when Wainwright talks about it, he really credits Jason Isringhausen for teaching him a valuable lesson when things kind of get spinning. And they may be spinning a bit for Hudson now. Don't forget to breathe. And by that, not just maybe a deep breath.
Slows it down.
Slow it down.
Talked to Adam about that yesterday.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. On one pitch. Izzy told me he will not wear his 2006 World Series ring.
Really?
And even though he was a big part of the season, he said, I don't feel like I earned it. I said, but you were such a big part of it to get the team in that position. And so I talked to Adam Wainwright about that. And I said, well, you're the guy.
Get him to wear it.
You know, that closed it out that he didn't. And he said, boy, without Jason and what he taught me against Carlos Beltran and trying to slow it down, breathe, and being able to close games out, I don't think I would have done it. As Wong drifts over into foul territory and can't make the catch.
Colton looked like he had a beat on it and then a little bit nonchalant there at the end and just looked back up at the sun as if the sun may have kind of come into play right towards the end, but he just missed it. Simple as that.
Wind is going that way towards the bleachers and seats in right. I agree with you. It didn't seem like he was fighting it one bit.
No, he seemed like he took the right route.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Speaking of that strikeout of Beltran, Adam said he and Carlos have talked about it one time. Carlos was signed by the Cardinals. Adam knew that they would be asked about that strikeout. He called Carlos Beltran. He said, look, we need to get this out of the way. You know, it obviously was a great moment for me and tough for you. And he said, Poppy, we're going to talk about it right now. Great moment for you. And I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Bad moment for me.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
Okay, we're done.
That was it.
You know, I had a talk with Terry Pendleton about being on the same coaching staff with Roger McDowell. And Cardinal fans know the home run that
September 11th, 1987.
1987 that Terry hit off McDowell at Chase Stadium in New York. And such a great Cardinal moment. Those two were coaches together for a number of years and never talked about it. Terry just said, I'm not bringing it up.
I like to talk about it.
Well, we can talk about it all we want because we didn't have a vested interest in it other than being fans.
Now, Terry is not coaching, I understand. Is that correct?
Right. He's not.
Be the first time in probably a decade and a half he
I believe
hasn't
he's
been in
a
uniform.
Special assistant.
Okay.
Still with the Braves.
2-2 pitch inside.
You think about that drop pop-up by Colton Wong, the added frustration when you think about what that does for Dakota Hudson, who is just about ready to get George Springer out and be done with an inning where he struggled. Now he has to throw more pitches, back to a 3-2 count. I mean, that's a killer for a young pitcher. It's just bad timing.
The 3-2 pitch, number 26 of the inning for Hudson. Runners will go, and they're off with the pitch, and that's the third walk. So a lengthy inning here for Dakota Hudson. Extends the inning to Alex Bregman.
And you know Colton feels that, knows that.
When I think of Izzy and with Houston here in town, I think about the Cardinals closing out the Astros in 05. Roy Oswalt closing out the Cardinals essentially. He was unbelievable in Game 6, the final ball game ever at Busch Stadium too. But the point being, boy, there were some great games, those two teams. Munoz tags the bag for the force play.
I'm not sure he was out.
No replay in spring training. Astros strand, the bases loaded.
He was.
His first and only Cardinal home run so far. He made the most of it, a no-doubter. That was Thursday here in Jupiter.
Love the way he leaned into that swing. He's got the weight back and then just everything going forward. Quick hands to catch up with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and he just smoked that ball over the left field wall. It'll be fun to watch him hit all year.
Just like that, out to deep left. And a ground roll double as the ball just jumps off the bat of Ozuna. Tony Sipp, first pitch, ripped into left for a ground roll double.
Fastball up in the zone, and he tomahawks it. And there's that style of Ozuna, which we'll all come to know as the season progresses, and such an important part of this team. You know, it's not just his production, Dan. I just think there's a scare factor with Ozuna that I think is going to make everybody else better in the middle of the lineup. You're not going to be searching for who's your cleanup hitter. You know who he is.
Now Yadier Molina. Sipp a year ago, 46 appearances out of the bullpen, finished 0-1 with an ERA near 6. Did not appear in their postseason, but still on their 40-man roster. He signed a 3-year, $18 million contract back in 2015.
And I'm sure he's going to wear the ring that he gets, and I still think Jason Isringhausen ought to wear his. That's my opinion. I'm not telling him that when I see him.
Tell him put it on.
And I'll tell him I've got a number of rings at my house that I didn't deserve that I wear, so. Why are you looking at my wedding ring?
Including your wedding ring.
Well, That's probably, I guess that's about the eight rings I have, including that one.
So you set yourself up.
I did. I saw you look right at it, too. Well,
poor Ann Horton.
Yeah.
Here's a 2-1 pitch to Yadier Molina. Way out in front, 2-2. Molina first time up, grounded out to second. Yadi came in hitting an even 200. He caught the majority of the game yesterday in Orlando. And a ground ball that's hit to short. You know, for a guy that's been around, it seems like forever, and Yadier Molina, you don't see him usually by design make those trips across state or to Orlando. But if you're going to have him go, you get your money's worth, and they did that.
So a conversation going on with the middle infielders, but also one with Ozuna and Jose Oquendo. I think they're talking about whether or not that's the kind of ground ball Ozuna can go from second to third on or not. And I think that's the conversation. Jose, again, never stops coaching. That ball was hit in front of Ozuna. And I think Oquendo's just at least getting to think about, did you make the right play or not? I'm sure they'll keep talking about that.
I thought he did.
I thought he made the right play because it was hit too hard.
Yeah.
But Ozuna still looked up at Jose because clearly they've talked about the idea of taking that base when you can get it. Jose's yelling to him right now. We could hear him in the background. Get more, get more. On the secondary lead. You have a primary lead, and then when the pitch comes home, you end up with a secondary lead. A couple of big shuffle steps, and you get as far off the bag as you can. There's the primary lead, shuffle steps, secondary lead. And you want to get that secondary lead so you can get a good jump on a ball that's hit into the outfield and score. If you're staying with your primary lead, you'll never score on a hit to the outfield. Primary, secondary.
The 2-1 popped up off the bat of Kelly, foul territory near the Cardinal dugout, and the catch is made by Gonzalez.
Oh, that was easy. Ooh.
So with 2 outs, it brings in Jairo Munoz.
Pop-up's an adventure here at Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium. You had the sense they were both saying, you take it, I don't want it.
I think from the catcher's perspective especially.
Of course.
Jairo Munoz doubled into left field first time up and has scored the only run for the Cardinals, trailing 2-1 here in the home half of the fourth. Munoz has made an impression, 8 for 22. He's played short, he's played third where he's at today. He's also been in the outfield. And the 1-0. Inside corner, 1 ball, 1 strike. So important, it's cliche to say you get off to a good start, but when you're a young player, when you get off to a good start in spring, you get more opportunities in major league games, and that's what's happened here with Munoz.
Just trying to create an impression. Made a little bit of a negative impression on our home plate umpire. I think that was a pitch that the umpire missed, and Munoz stepped out of the box. The umpire told him to get back in the box, or something to that effect. Remember that speed up rule where you can't leave the box unless it's a foul ball? That rule we ignored from a couple years ago?
That gets away. And a rule that is still supposed to be enforced but has not been.
Correct.
So Munoz, along with some of the other young players, making that impression that we talk about. Adolis Garcia, Munoz, Luke Voigt, good start. Arozarena, Bader, and Mercado with the 3 stolen bases. Two and two.
Not happy again. He doesn't step out of the box this time. They're going to go back in again. Why not?
2-2. Hit out of play. The tying run, Ozuna down at third. 2-2 pitch. Full count.
Munoz has a unique style with his hands. His elbows are close together. The bat is flat on his shoulder. And you think, boy, he could be tied up easily. But like most hitters, or really all hitters at this level, it's not kind of where he starts, it's where he gets to. So he starts there, that's comfortable for him. Elbows are a little bit too close, hands high, bat close to his head, but he moves the bat back, ready to hit. But missed that one.
Cardinals strand a runner. It's 2-1 Houston. In the third, looks to be a fly ball into right that would stay in the ballpark, but as we've noted, the wind is really blowing out to right field. And it turns out to be a home run for the reigning American League MVP.
All the players on the Cardinals bench looked up like it was a pop-up, but then Harrison Bader looked up. Ball went over his head. Altuve, I would say, arguably the best player in the game right now. When you think about defense and what he does on the base paths, he's got power, can drive in runs. I mean, he's definitely on the short list.
He had 32 steals last year. Now, fans of Mike Trout would say, hold on here. What about Mike Trout?
He's not bad.
He's pretty good.
Both defensively and offensively.
That's right. But I think if you're making a short list of the best players in the game, sure, he's on it. The 2-1 pitch to Altuve. 2-2.
And when we're talking about the short list, there are a number of players that are really good in this game, and a lot of good young players especially, which I think is fun. When you get a guy like Cody Bellinger, who we saw break out with the Dodgers last year, and of course the Cardinals have Tommy Pham, and I mean there's a number of good players. Paul DeYoung, good young players, but when we talk about the elite players, that small list is hard to break into because you've got to be good at everything, and Altuve is.
2-2 hit out to right. That'll stay in the ballpark barely.
Altuve clearly knows which way the wind is blowing.
Yes, sir.
Should be a politician.
The 2-2 pitch. Breaks his bat, slowly hit to the right side. Hudson covering the bag at first. And there's one away. Nationals will be here tomorrow. Will come your way at noon. The Cardinals and the Nationals. And you can stream that on Fox Sports Go and take us in on Fox Sports Midwest. The Nationals and Cardinals tomorrow at noon. Here's Carlos Correa. We were talking about Carlos Beltran earlier. He played 1 year with Houston, finally got that World Series ring a year ago, and had a huge impact on the team, but in particular with Carlos Correa. and he got him to try to use the entire field. He was very much a pull-heavy hitter. As he taps that foul, and Beltran worked with him, mentored him, but talked about going the other way. Only shortstop in Major League history to reach the 20-homer mark in each of his first 3 seasons. Made his Major League debut in 2015. He was the Rookie of the Year. A grounder left side to Young, and safe at the bag at first.
Well, DeYoung again doing a good job of getting the right hop. Unfortunately, airmails the throw just a little bit. Wisdom trying to come down as fast as he could, but once he's going up, you just have to rely on gravity after that, and Correa beat him to the bag.
How important was Carlos Correa when he was not in the lineup? He missed 6 weeks last year. The team was 2 games under 500. They were 20 and 22. When he was in the lineup, 73 and 36. That is telling.
Well, as stacked as they are, that's a little hard to believe anyway. I mean, the Astros, they're a great team with him, but they're a pretty good team without him, you would think.
Sure.
But obviously that wasn't the case. They missed him.
And the 0-1 pitch to Josh Reddick.
That's why a team has to be a team, Dan. You have to have, over the course of a year, you've got to find ways for your club to be able to withstand an injury, a blip, whatever might happen to one of your key players. Somebody else has to step up and step in and produce.
Here's a 1-1. Hit the other way, past Munoz and into left. Playing him to pull on the infield, and it gets past Munoz. So the error committed by DeYoung, and now Reddick, the base hit, is second today.
Shortstop DeYoung up the middle, way off the bag is the third baseman, but not quite far enough.
In steps Marwin Gonzalez.
You see a hit like that, Dan, and you think, boy, that looked easy, didn't it? Just put the ball in play, hit the ball on the ground, and sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. This game can be very, very hard.
Gonzalez has walked and also flied out to left. And takes a ball. Big year upcoming for him. He is one of 5 Astros that will become a free agent. Dallas Keuchel, Evan Gattis, Tony Sipp, who's pitched, Charlie Morton. At 23 home runs, drove in 90 last year.
Well, so you talk about next year's free agents. We've still not done with this year's free agents.
Isn't that the truth? I was thinking about some key Cardinals in the past that are free agents. Matt Holliday has not been signed. John Jay, good ball player. Certainly could help a team. Lance Lynn. Here's a 2-0 pitch. 2-1. It's made me wonder, if you're a free agent to be and a club approaches you this year, do you take a harder look at it and say, you know what, I don't want to be that guy on the outside looking in this time next year. I'm willing to look at it and take a harder look at it because of what's going on this season.
Well, that's a great question, and I would have to say the answer is yes. You're talking about the club making some kind of an offer, an overture at a maybe less than market value type contract to just keep you locked up for 2 or 3 more years. Why not?
And you say less than market, maybe this is the market now. You know, this could be the new market.
Well, that's always the question about what something's worth. Is what somebody's willing to pay for it.
That's
right now, I don't think they're willing to pay $100 million for a player that might get hurt for multiple years, and I just think that's a business correction that's happening. I'm not a lawyer here, and I'm not sure I know everything about what's going on behind closed doors, but I don't think it's a collusion. I think it's just business.
Drops in for a base hit into center. Off the end of the bat, Pham gets it back in quickly, and now the base is loaded. Cardinals do have a right-hander getting loose in the pen. 45 pitches here for Hudson. It's Connor Green, hard throwing right-hander. Was in the Toronto Blue Jays organization. You see them work on the walkie-talkies there. There's no bullpen phones at this ballpark. And now Evan Gattis, and nothing has come easy here for Hudson today.
Like he snake bit. Now he added to that by having 3 walks in that first inning, but it's just, this hasn't been a good series of events for Dakota Hudson.
And there's ball 1.
And we've had a lot of those. Ball 1.
Pitching behind in the count, maybe a little too fine. But isn't that what separates the guys that are close or minor leaguers to being a big leaguer consistently? Here's a 1-0 pitch. Hudson to Evan Gattis. 2 balls and no strikes.
Well, he dealt with that a little bit going up to AAA last year. The number's not quite as good. I had an interesting conversation with some Cardinal coaches who said that, you know, the AAA jump now, I believe it was Brian Eversgerd I had the longest conversation with. The AAA jump, we used to say that the AA was the big jump and AAA wasn't as big, but it is now. I mean, even the going from AA to AAA is a huge difference in terms of the experience of players there. Got a lot of former big leaguers playing in AAA, and you know, it's not just AA is not just the development league now, and AAA kind of the has-been league. It's guys that are expected to be part of big league teams in that rotation where you bring your pitchers up, you bring your players back and forth, the shuttle team, if you will, and it's tough competition there now.
2-1 pitch to Gattis. 2-2. Well, pitch count now at 49. Barring a double play, you wonder if this would be the final batter that Hudson would see, with Green hot and ready to go. The 2-2 pitch to Evan Gattis. 3-2.
There he is picking again. 2-2, you got to make something happen. 2-2. I would guess that pitch was at 94, but hitters just aren't going to chase that. High percentage of pitches out of the zone, 44% out of the zone, too high.
See Kelly give him a little fist pump behind the plate. Here we go, bases loaded, 3-2 pitch. And he struck him out. The slow walk by Mike Matheny and the strikeout here by Gattis.
Well, he ends on a good note. Gattis wasn't sure that was a strike.
So pitching change, 2-1 our score, the top of 5. Midwest is brought to you in part by Rent-to-Own Centers, St. Charles in South County, RTOAutocenters.com. By Hyundai, a better SUV is waiting for you at your local St. Louis Hyundai dealer. And by Steak and Shake, mix and match any 2 for just $3. Better burgers, better prices, Steak and Shake. This would be interesting here with the bases loaded and Connor Green on the mound. And I say that because he had 83 walks in 132 and 2/3 innings last year. So you put him in a tough spot. See how he responds. There's strike 1.
Well, he's got some upside because he has the big power arm. And what you need out of a guy that you want to count on out of your bullpen is strike 1. And there you look at the numbers from a year ago, the 83 walks. 92 strikeouts get your attention a little bit, but that's not a great ratio, obviously, walks to strikeouts.
And the 0-1.
Pound the zone. Don't pick.
Bases loaded and the 1-1 pitch with 2 down. 2 balls and a strike. Connor Green is from Santa Monica, California, and he's friends with Charlie Sheen. He's appeared on several episodes of the TV series Anger Management.
You remember the day where we had our interaction with Charlie Sheen on the road?
Oh, yeah. It was in Houston, by the way.
I know. I was working out, and it started because I was working out in the gym with a guy, and I looked at him and I think, I know this guy. It was Todd Zeal.
Former Cardinal.
Former Cardinal, and former teammate of mine. We hadn't really caught eyes, and when I saw him, I said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm with him. And him, the third guy in the room, was Charlie Sheen, who was on the treadmill. And he goes, I'm kind of his buddy, and I travel with him, and I take care of him, which I did not push that conversation any further. But he said, you know, Charlie would love to go out to the ballpark. Do you think he could meet some players? So asked a few players if they would agree to meet with Charlie after a ball game. He came out to the field, met him, and kind of just held court in the atrium of the hotel we were staying at, and it was a great experience. It was really fun. He was very cordial with everybody. Todd Zeal, his entourage. I would never have guessed it.
Swing and a miss. Strikeout for Connor Green. Coming up for the Cardinals, the bottom of 5, it'll be Colton Wong. Houston on top here in Jupiter. On FS1, the 2018 Big East Tournament, sponsored by Jeep, beginning Wednesday, only on FS1. That time of year,
Sure
March
is.
Madness, and they had Arch Madness in St. Louis, Missouri Valley Conference.
I tell you, college basketball does it up well, don't they? In the month of March, it's really an exciting time, and it's hard to watch a bad game. They're all good.
So much drama.
Oh, my goodness.
It's fun.
And a lot of parity in that sport going on right now, too. And I'm a little partial to my alma mater in terms of following, but I just can't watch a bad game. They're all good.
Buddy Boshears, new pitcher. It's Patrick Wisdom, and he hits a high fly ball into left. Didn't catch it. And the catch made out in left. So 1 pitch and 1 out.
You know, I mentioned that Michael Wacha actually pitched better than his numbers are going to indicate. He gave up 2 runs in 3 innings. Dakota Hudson, on the other hand, pitched an inning and 2/3 and didn't give up a run. But I would say it was not a good outing for him. So sometimes it works out fairly, sometimes it doesn't. And if you're the evaluator of those guys on the staff of the Cardinals, you're gonna look past those numbers, and your eyes are going to tell you that, look, Wacha was on it today and Hudson was not.
There's ball 1 to Harrison Bader, RBI base hit back in the 3rd. Jeffrey Allen, Buddy Boshears. Pitch with the Angels, also Minnesota. And Bader skies one into shallow left center. Out number 2.
Cardinals really haven't squared up a lot of baseballs here this afternoon.
No.
And the Astros can hit, we know that, but they also can pitch, and I'm really impressed by Brad Peacock, who started this game today, had 3 strikeouts and 2 hitless innings.
So 2 outs, and here's Colton Wong. Tommy Pham on deck. Cardinals trailing 2-1. A curveball of beauty drops in for strike 1. Boshears was claimed off of waivers by Houston back in January of this past offseason. Originally drafted by the Angels, 4th round in 2008. Made his major league debut in 2013. The following year, split time at AA and AAA. Out to center, a sinking liner and a base hit. Cardinals, we've talked about it during the spring, and it seems like we do every spring. Very aggressive in terms of stealing bases.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to carry that over to the regular season, but they're among the league leaders so far this spring training.
Well, you like the attitude of running the bases to not just be stolen bases, but first to third, scoring from second, getting good jumps.
And speaking of speed, it was Tommy Pham who was posting on Instagram some of his work. And watch this, specific for speed, 21.5 miles per hour. And it did get faster even after that. And this is the aspect of his game he said, I even want to get better at my speed.
It's pretty incredible. That day I was on a treadmill and I was doing 9.5 and I thought I was going to fall off the treadmill, and here he's doing 21. I mean, seriously.
It's impressive. He's come in great shape. The eyes have been just fine so far, which is always the concern when you talk about Tommy. No balls and a strike.
Maybe if I had that harness, Dan, I could do 21.5.
Maybe.
I'd be George Jetson. Are you kidding me? I'd be flying off the back wall so fast.
It's a stolen base for Colton Long. Well, I think what you do, if you're serious about it, is that you call up Todd Zeal.
Yeah.
And the personal trainer of the Stars, and maybe get him to work with you.
Huh. It's a thought.
As you mentioned last inning, Todd was personal trainer for Charlie Sheen. And we ran into him in Houston.
That we did.
Now, you have a picture, apparently, of yourself with Charlie and some of his closest friends.
I do. It's a little ironic that I would. But maybe if you play your cards right, Connor Green will introduce you to Charlie Sheen this year. How about that? Could happen. I'm sure they're.
Well, why not? He's a big baseball fan, a big Reds fan.
He does love baseball.
Curveball, and he strikes out Pham as he froze him. Rick's good buddy, Charlie Sheen. Best buds. You got the time, you got the funds. Come on down. Great place to spend a few days, watch some baseball, and great weather always, it seems like, here in Jupiter, Florida.
Won't be disappointed. The minor league staff, by the way, talked to John Vooch today. They're showing up in mass tomorrow. The minor league coaches and managers and trainers and the whole staff, they're going to get ready for the players who get here on the 7th. And again, my encouragement is, if you can.
It's off of Green. Munoz backhands throw to first, and they got him. What a play.
Wow.
Green. Munoz on to Wisdom at first.
You just hope that Green is okay. Again, the conversation will be had on the mound. Where did it hit him? Looked like the left leg. And ready for action was Munoz. Ball was hit so hard. Marisnik, who runs fairly well. Green was happy about it and seems to say that he's okay, but he'll get a Cardinal athletic trainer to verify that. Sometimes that doesn't hurt at first, and then it tightens up a bit. One more look. No time to react.
So that'll go 1-5-3, and the first out here at the top of the 6th. Here's Miles Straw. Will pinch hit for Springer. And a line drive base hit into right field. So Straw is aboard.
But if you do come down to spring training, Dan, I always suggest to come down when you get a chance to watch the minor league teams play as well. You can come early in March if you want, but the games will start about the 12th or the 13th, somewhere around there, and they'll have some camp days where they play against each other. But you can go onto the backfields here.
There's access to it.
There's access. Bring the kids back there. Bring some, of course, bring some sunscreen. But you will get a chance to watch four. There'll be a AA game on one field, a AAA game on the other field, and let's say you're playing the Mets that day. The Mets will send all their teams over here, and usually you'll do the upper levels at one ballpark and the lower levels go to the other complex. So maybe the A-ball teams go up to Port St. Lucie, the Mets AA, AAA come down here, but there'll be games all over the place. And it's just, to me, a great way to look at young players before anybody really knows their name. And of course you can do a little research, find out who the great prospects are, and see if you can find them. And it's just really a fun atmosphere, really is.
Want to know the count on Alex Bregman.
And our minor league staff does an outstanding job. Gary LaRocque, Mark DeJean, John Vooch, those are the guys who kind of run the show, but from the field personnel and the director of development, Gary LaRocque. But the idea is to get guys ready to be big leaguers, and they have really done a nice job with that.
The complex here, as you walk down the halls of the spring training facility here at Roger Dean, the Cardinals put up big pictures of players that have made their debuts with the Cardinals, all the way from Matt Carpenter in 2011 and on that wall to last year's call-ups, as a way and as a reminder for the young players that, hey, you're going to be rubbing elbows with these guys in the complex. You're going to see them. And here it is. There's their big league picture in action. And another aspect that they've added this year, going down another hallway of the complex in which every player will see it, are all the pictures of the Cardinals Hall of Famers too, which is something that they added this year, and it's by design. I mean, it's there to remind them you're not that far away, keep working.
And the young players who are the prospects, the top prospects that came here for the step camp is what they call it.
Line drive into right center, and that ball is down and all the way to the wall. A run will score. Bregman on his way to third with an RBI triple, standing up. 3-1 Houston.
Well, Bregman rudely interrupts our story by hitting a line drive into the right center field gap. There's the attempt in center, and it goes all the way to the wall. But the point I was going to make about the step camp players that are here, they're taken to those pictures in that quarter, Dan, and they're given a history lesson on who Frankie Frisch is and who Stan Musial is. You think you wouldn't have to necessarily say that, but you do. And who Red Schoendienst is, and who Bob Forsch is, and I think that, you know, it's not just to study history just for the sake of having useless information and trivia, but it's to realize that you're a part of something bigger than just you, and you can be a big part of something that's been ongoing for over 125 years.
This is Tony Kemp at the plate, just 2 for 18 this spring. Infield is in, and a little bouncer right side that finds a hole, and a base hit into right to make it 4-1 Houston.
Drawn in infield, put the ball in play. Don't even have to hit it hard. You have to hit it in the right spot.
Brings in Jack Mayfield. He'll Pinch hit for Carlos Correa. Correa had a nice day. He was on base 3 times, scored a run. 4-1 Houston here in the top of the 6th. Runner goes. Chance for Kelly. A strike to second. Wow. What a throw. Bryson Kelly, one of the top-rated defensive players in the minor leagues a season ago. This catch your eye.
I thought the release was quick. Ball was down in the zone, but he got it up quickly and got it out of his glove into his hand and into the glove of Mejia.
Also shows off the quick hands of Alex Mejia, too.
That's something we rate everything in this game. Oh my goodness, do we have stats for everything? But some players are just better at catching a throw and making a tag. And I don't know how you put a number on that. I can't believe somebody hasn't come up with that yet. But there are some guys that are good at it and some guys that are slow at taking the ball down, and maybe you take it to the wrong spot.
How many base stealers has Javi Baez helped in that regard for the Cubs?
Exactly.
I'm not sure there's anybody better. A lot of wind up there, and Mejia going out makes the catch. Nice play by the second baseman. 2 runs in the inning, 4-1 our score, and Carson Kelly slated to be the backup this year with a strike to second. What's on Tap is presented by Budweiser. The Nationals will be here tomorrow. Luke Weaver gets that start. Hey, if you're at work, why not just put it on your phone at Fox Sports Go, or if you're at home, Fox Sports Midwest. What's on Tap, presented by Budweiser.
I think I'll be sitting right out there tomorrow watching that game. I might have a front row seat, Danny.
You're not with me tomorrow.
No, I'm not.
The first pitch is hit to the left side, and Young is out. So it'll be Rick Ankiel tomorrow.
Isn't that great? It's always good to see Rick down here in spring training, fantasy camp, and of course he does pre and post game work with us as well, and he'll have tomorrow's game. Rick is always positive to be around, and what an unbelievable athlete. I'm going to say he was, but he is. He still is.
I told you what he told me the other day. I said, I'll give you a month. How hard are you going to throw off the mound? He said, I'll throw pretty hard. I said, okay, how about over under 95? He said, you better take the over.
How about that?
I said, curveball? He said, yeah, it'll drop 2 feet. I said, well, can I be your agent? Let's get you back out there.
Wait a minute, let's talk about this some more.
Incredible athlete, and it's been fun to watch him as Ozuna hits it sharply to second. You know, in many ways, grew up in front of our eyes.
He sure did.
In many ways. Ozuna 1 for 3 on the day with a double. This would be Yadier Molina's spot, and it'll go to Andrew Kisner. That's what's kind of fun for me. I did Rick Ankiel's, as a broadcaster, did his first game ever as a pitcher in Montreal. And then I called his first game back as a position player in St. Louis in a home run off of Doug Brocail and the Padres in a memorable night, one of the great moments we've ever had at Busch Stadium 3. And now here he is. He's going to sit next to me. We did some games last year, and it was fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Also tells me I'm getting old. I don't like that part.
That and other things tell us that.
As Kisner strikes out in a quick 1-2-3 inning. We head to the 7th. And the Astros on top 4-1. Honored to sponsor the Cardinals Hall of Fame and annual induction process that gives fans a voice in honoring the team's greatest players. Be a part of that fan voting. Cardinals.com/HOF.
A couple of red coats there. those Hall of Famers. I'm not sure which Hall of Famers they would be. But they are sure decked out right here at the ballpark, aren't they?
They might be part of a cruise ship. They got the captain's jacket on, you know. Looked like it a little bit.
I'm just saying they looked hot. Since the temperature is in the mid to upper 70s. Let's just say they looked very warm, Dan.
Lucas is greeted with a long foul ball. Every year at the induction ceremony, there's the Redcoats. They're there, big Cardinal fans that come every year, and they've got the Redcoats on. Good pitch by Lucas, who made his major league debut with the Cardinals last year. And he picks up a strikeout.
Last time we saw him early this week, we were impressed with the breaking ball that was down, down, down. Again, down and in. He throws this one from right over the top. It looks like he's going to be 3/4, but that delivery over the top and the downward tilt. Nice action to it. I don't believe I saw that sharp a breaking ball from Lucas last spring training, Dan, when we watched him. I mean, that's pretty nasty right there.
Here's A.J. Reed. This is a different breaking ball than the one that we even saw in regular season last year.
I would agree. Different meaning better, and maybe it's the same pitch, but just perfected or improved upon. I'll tell you who's improved. The guy who has stood out for me the most and surprised me the most in a positive way this spring, I'll tell you in a second.
Reed grounds to short. Big power guy in the minor leagues. Reed, by the way, led the minors with 34 home runs a season ago.
You normally ask me that question, Dan, and I was just trying to beat you to the punch.
Fire away.
The guy that's impressed me the most and makes me think about just what he can be this year is Mike Myers.
Oh, I would agree with that.
He pitched yesterday. I didn't see him pitch yesterday, but the time before when I saw him, I thought this guy is a Cardinal middle reliever. He's a big league guy that can come in the 6th inning, the 7th inning, and sometimes his slider was that good, and his stuff was that good, and his demeanor looked like a reliever. I mean, I just think there's a chance that he can make that jump. And we've seen guys do that. We've seen Matt Bowman do it, John Brebbia, guys that maybe we hadn't heard of prior to that just make that big leap. But I think Mike Myers may have gotten over a hump.
And a base hit out to left. And we're talking about a guy that has been used primarily as a starter in his pro career.
Right.
So we mention this a lot. Guy goes from being a starter to a reliever, and there's an uptick in velocity. There's a different just way they go about their business, knowing they can air it out, trying to get 3 innings or 1 batter, whatever the case may be.
And you hone in on your stuff, too. You don't need to be a 3 or 4 pitch pitcher. You're just 1 or 2. It just, here it is. Here's my best pitch. It's a slider. Well, I'm going to throw about 8 of them. Throw some good fastballs, too, but I'm going to, I'm only throwing 10 pitches. I don't need to set anything up. Here you go. Hit this. And I just thought that when we saw him last week, that maybe that's brought out the best in Mike Myers.
There's Garrett Stubbs. Graduate of Torrey Pines High School in San Diego. If I grew up in Torrey Pines, I'd probably be a golfer.
No kidding.
Was at AAA last year for just 23 games. That's Fresno for the Astros. Played at USC. Man that leads the Cardinals draft is Randy Flores, who is the all-time leader in wins at USC.
And they've had a fair number of pretty good pitchers at that college, too.
Oh, yeah.
May have heard of Tom Seaver.
It's a good one.
Mark McGuire, Randy Johnson. I'd say they were all pretty good.
Yeah, if you said to somebody, there's a guy named Randy, he's left-handed, he was really good, and he's the all-time leader in wins at USC, you'd start dropping some more hints. People say, well, it's Randy Johnson. No, it's Randy Flores. Won Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS. Often overlooked in that great postseason run. Two and two the count.
Rod Dedeaux, the late Rod Dedeaux, was the legendary coach there at USC, and just a wonderful gentleman. Had a chance to meet him a couple of times out in LA. He took me golfing one day out there, and he said, along the way, he wasn't golfing, he was just kind of chaperoning us around. He said, yeah, Tom Seaver hit a ball here back in blah, 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 and he hit it all the way on the green. And Freddie Lynn hooked one around this deal, and I hit a ball off the tee sideways. And he goes, you know, I don't believe anybody's ever hit a ball over there. And he was in his 90s when he said that. Great man.
Strikeout for Lucas. And it's time to stretch in a 4-1 game. Half of the 7th. I'm not sure those fans care one way or another about the score.
They are enjoying the experience, and there's something to be said for that in the game of baseball. You want your team to win, of course, especially starting in the 1st of April, actually this year in late March. But there's something to be said about just enjoying your time out at the ballpark. And if you've not gotten your tickets yet, Cardinals.com, you can get your single game tickets. You can make sure you're at the ballpark when your favorite team is in town, your favorite player from other teams, and of course a chance to look at your 2018 St. Louis Cardinals. So get online, get your tickets. We'll see you at the ballpark.
Mentioned that Kelly is penciled in to be the backup to Yadier Molina. Talking with Carson before the game today, he said Yadi has been nothing but upbeat, positive, helpful. Those two have forged a nice friendship, which oftentimes is the case with the backup and the regular.
I won't say the specifics because it was a coach-player conversation, but Carson Kelly went up to John Mabry at the batting cage after his round, and he was asking him some questions. And one of the things that, you know, I'd noticed this about him already, it's pretty easy to tell, but he's a likable, teachable kid. That's what I mean, kid. He's a young man, but young player. And I just liked the way you approached John Mabry and was wanting to get better, wanting to learn. And, you know, you can say Yadi's been good to him, but you got to be teachable and ready as the young player too. Remember Dal Maxfield telling me years ago, he was a coach for a while with the Atlanta Braves, and he had a good young player. And he went up to the young player, Dal Maxfield, one of the great shortstops in Cardinals defensively. And he went up to the young player and he started to tell him, and he goes, no, that's not the way I do it. Leave me alone. And so that's what he decided. I don't like coaching anymore.
Talked to Carson about his relationship with Yadier Molina and how those two are starting to come together.
Just be ready for every opportunity. He's been so great to me, and helping me through my transition through, being a catcher, and finally getting to the big leagues. And it's been a great ride, and I'm excited to be with him for the next few years.
Well, pretty good guy to learn from in Yadier Molina, no question about it. So Carson draws a leadoff walk. Jairo Munoz at the plate. Inside, second inning of work from Mike Hochschild, 28-year-old from Dayton, Ohio. Has just a little bit of Major League service. He's a former 33rd round selection. As he made it to the Major Leagues with the Rangers a year ago.
I think Carson Kelly, Dan, represents a very good plan B at the moment for the Cardinals.
Absolutely.
I think the problem would be tougher if you were talking about a guy in Carson Kelly who hit 35 home runs in AAA and drove in 120 runs and, was 21 years. I mean, I just think that'd be different. He's a good player, good hitter, but I think he just deserves to be in the big leagues and let him get his experience here at the big league level. The idea that you want to send him to AAA and keep, I just think that ship has sailed for him. I think he just belongs in the big leagues, and if he doesn't play all the time, that's okay. He'll get his chance, but you're not retarding the growth of a guy, again, that's going to be your middle-of-the-lineup hitter probably. I'm not saying he can't, but I wouldn't think he would project that way. So I think it's the right move to have him as a great plan B at the big league level.
There's Patrick Wisdom. He had the 31 home runs last year at Memphis. He's playing first base today with Munoz down at third. And the 1-0 pitch to Wisdom. Hold foul. Well, I got to think that Wisdom, with what he did last year in the minor leagues, this is his 4th or 5th big league camp, that if he doesn't break camp with the Cardinals, that sometimes you do him a favor, but there's got to be teams that would look at him and say he could help us, whether it be first or third, but that bat will play.
Well, the knock on Wisdom has been the high strikeouts. That's an issue. But good defensive player, good pop, high average. I agree with you. Some team could use Patrick Wisdom, and I think they're just trying to figure out how to get him on the cheap right now. He was left unprotected, so they could have had him.
The 2-1 is lined out to left, sinking, and a diving catch in left field.
Nice play by Davis, the left fielder. Sinking line drive, as you mentioned, and takes it off the top of the grass. It's one of those plays where it's hard enough to catch it initially, but the hard part is to hang on to it because you're going to fall, you're going to get some jarring move past it hitting your glove, and you just have to be athletic at that point, and he certainly was.
There's Harrison Bader, J.D. Davis, the left fielder, 3rd-round pick out of Cal State Fullerton. And with all the returning players that Houston has, it's just going to be very tough for him to crack this lineup. Last year, injury to George Springer, so he got a chance, and the Astros have talked about what he can do against, in particular, left-handed pitching. So we'll see. It's one of the beauties of spring training, especially late innings, looking at the future. I mean, these are guys that very well could be everyday players before it's all said and done. One of them at the plate, Harrison Bader. The 1-1. 2 strikes.
Johnny Gorel was the minor league director for the Cleveland Indians when I was a coach there. And one of the first things he told me as a coach, he said, I want you to look for something that we haven't seen. Because we're used to these guys. We've been looking at them every day. And there's going to be some times where you'll see something in a guy that we just haven't seen, or, we've just kind of just missed it. And so that's part of it in spring training, finding that diamond in the rough.
Base hit into center for Bader. And now the tying run comes to the plate. It'll be Oscar Mercado. First pitch to Mercado. Taken for a ball inside.
He was on that list you showed earlier of young Cardinal players who are having a good spring. Not just swinging the bat well, playing good defensively. Really a center fielder now, came up as a minor leaguer, but he's swinging the bat well and stealing bases.
Mentioned he's very light on his feet.
That has been clear.
And it's pulled foul. Moved from Colombia with his family when he was 8 years old. And was a top high school shortstop coming from the Tampa area. And it was the end of 2016 that he really blossomed into a very good defensive outfielder because of his speed. Pitch in the dirt, 2 balls and 1 strike. Hit 13 home runs at Springfield last year. Go along with his 38 stolen bases. And a 2-1 pitch to Oscar Mercado. 2-2.
His confidence has really grown this spring. I think being invited to big league camp, he believes, and we've talked about this a couple of times in the early games here, that he's just disappointed in the start that he's had as a professional. But last year, Arizona Fall League, made a lot of progress, and I think his confidence is higher.
Outside corner, Cardinals strand a pair. Back in Jupiter, and it's 4-1 Astros. In the 8th inning as it rolls in on a beautiful day in Florida.
We like what we saw from Josh Lucas. He pitched a scoreless 7th inning. A couple of strikeouts in this inning. Gives way to Daniel Ponce de Leon. This is his 3rd game in spring already. He had one good one rough outing. And, of course, the story, if you've not heard it, about Ponce de Leon is he was struck in the head by a line drive a season ago after a terrific start in Memphis, and just a horrific moment. And his recovery was in question. They wasn't sure how well and how quickly he could recover and whether he'd play baseball again. But here he is pitching this spring. It's to me, it's a great story, and it's been fun to get to kind of watch him develop.
Couldn't believe it. When I talked to him the other day, he said, and I asked him, I just said, how hesitant were you that first time on the mound? And he said, I'm trying to be as honest as I can to you. He said, I wasn't.
Yeah.
If it was meant to be,
yeah,
it was meant to be. And for folks that don't know, he was very close to dying. I mean, it was that serious. He still has a dent where the ball hit him in his head. He does wear protective gear inside the hat, and he wears the goggles. But I mean, give him a lot of credit. Most people, if not all people, would just say, you know what, it was a nice run, I'm done. And here he is pitching in a Major League Baseball game.
He's a man of few words when you're around him. He's just not real chatty. We interviewed him, and he had a chance to talk at the baseball writers' dinner, and I was warned about that from his teammates that know him. They said Ponce is just not going to say too much, but very well respected. And the thing that I really respected about him when I was told that the guys in AAA wanted and the team wanted to honor him and have him throw out the first pitch during a playoff game, and he didn't want to do that because he didn't want the attention to be on him. And as a guy that had been on that team, he wanted the focus to be on winning, and let's just make it. And it wasn't. He wasn't afraid to do that. He wasn't, not that he wasn't thankful for it. He just didn't want the focus to be on him. He's just that kind of guy.
It brings in Miles Straw, who singled to right back in the 6th inning and scored. So the leadoff walk And that pitch in for a strike. One pitch. Now 0-2. Straw has played in 272 career games in the minor leagues and has 81 steals. Could be 2, 4, 6, 3 on the double play. Cardinals are pleased to offer fan-friendly values throughout this season. If you're looking for ways to save some cash or find a great value at the ballpark, make sure to check out the Fan Value Corner at cardinals.com/values. So 2 outs here in the top of the 8th. And it brings in Tyler White. And White on the first pitch hits it out of play.
Well, Danny, the wind's still blowing out hard to that right field corner, so the 3 home runs that I predicted that would go out, we're still 2 shy of, so maybe that'll happen in the 8th and 9th inning for the Cardinals.
Plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Mention how we've had such good weather down here. One day it rained that I can think of, and that's been it.
And you think about what bad weather can do to a spring training. Oh boy. I know there was a year, and I don't know whether it was 89 or 90. I believe it rained for 8 or 9 straight days down here, and you just literally could not do any work outside. So you're hitting in cages. You're throwing, you're pitching off the mound in a cage, trying to simulate work. You're trying to take ground. I mean, you just can't do it. You do the best you can. But spring training, you can't afford, because you're trying to build up. And if weather cuts into that, it can be a real problem getting pitchers ready to throw 70, 80, 90 pitches by opening day. That's a progression. And if you miss a day, you feel like you've lost 3 or 4 days, because you're really only throwing every 3rd or 4th day. And it just sets you back.
And White hits it out of play. Saw some big league time last year in 22 games. Hit .279 with 3 home runs. Played 4 years at Western Carolina University. And soon enough, he'll have a ring with his name on it. We're told that the Astros have developed roughly 800 to 900 rings that they will hand out.
Right.
Ricky mentioned that on the 12th of this month, which is an off day, they will fly to Washington and visit the White House. One of the perks of winning a world championship. 3-2 pitch. Out to center. Ponce de Leon. A scoreless inning. And in that inning, gets a double play for 6-3. Cardinals trailing. Not a lot of offense today for the Birds. It's 4-1. Sports Midwest is brought to you in part by Budweiser. Wherever legendary MLB moments happen, Budweiser will be there. By the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket played gives back to Missouri schools. So play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. And by Ford. Going further so you can. Ramin Goudouin is the pitcher for the Houston Astros.
We saw him last Sunday. He pitched the 9th inning of that game. And he got beat around a little bit at the big league level last year, getting his feet wet. A pitcher from San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic. When you think of that town, which is really not a big city, but if you've been to San Pedro, it's amazing how many big league players have come from that one city in the Dominican, and a lot of them shortstops.
This young man could throw hard as Alex Mejia digs in. Average fastball velocity of 95.4 miles per hour, 6th hardest among American League left-handed pitchers. You could probably imagine who was number 1 on that list. One Aroldis Chapman. The average fastball for Chapman was 100.2. Average.
That's average.
It's incredible. But this lefty's always had high strikeout numbers in the minor leagues, and he picks up a strikeout to start the bottom of the 8th. For 3 decades, generations of fans have turned to Cardinals magazine for unbeatable coverage. This year, you'll receive a couple of tickets if you subscribe to Cardinals magazine, 314-345-9000, cardinals.com/publications. Edmundo Sosa looks at a strike.
I didn't think that last fastball looked overpowering necessarily, and I look up on the board and it was 98.
And I look up at the board and it's 98. 0-2 quickly on Sosa.
He's better get ready, gear it up, start swinging right about now.
There you go. 0-2 pitch and a base hit into left. Sosa last year appeared in 1 game as he turned on that 97-mile-an-hour fastball with Springfield. He was with Palm Beach primarily and hit 285.
Hitters will figure out velocity often. Once they understand somebody's got a little bit more giddy up, they just start quicker. As long as you can see it, get the hands moving quickly enough. Then you can't hit that, though. You can't hit the slider if you're looking fastball.
Adolis Garcia, younger brother of Adonis Garcia, played with the Atlanta Braves and a third baseman with the Braves. And Adolis pulls it foul.
And this is the other player that's impressed me in the early going. There have been a lot of good things that I've seen, but in terms of players that look like big leaguers to me, he's getting very close to that from what I've seen from Garcia. And I mentioned Mike Myers earlier on the pitching side, but in terms of maybe a name that's not front and center that people might not be expecting, and of course there are those guys too, but he's had some healthy cuts, including that one.
You know, they talk about his aggressiveness. That's a good example of it there. And I guess it's a fine line. You don't want a guy to lose the aggressiveness, but yet somehow contain it too, right?
You got to let them play. You got to let them play with what their confidence is, their form, their flair, whatever you want to say it.
The ball scoots away, so Sosa advancing to second base.
You know, there's just a theory in coaching that, you know, if you overcoach somebody too young, I think this is a thought that maybe some people that are coaching youth baseball should think about is you try to make somebody kind of too much of a refined, kind of mechanical guy instead of just letting their ability flow. Let them throw. Let them and let players run. Let basketball players, let them shoot. Don't get too. If you overcoach them, sometimes they get so mechanical that their ability doesn't come out.
The strikeout of Garcia. Runner stays put at second. A throw down to first for the out. And there's 2 down, and it brings in Kisner.
You know, it's a little bit counterintuitive, though, isn't it, Danny? You think about it like, you know, your kids are young and they're good athletes, and you're thinking, well, you want to coach them, and that's how you want to help them by coaching them, and sometimes you just help them by letting them play.
Let them play,
and then maybe, you know, pick your battles.
That's the best way to put it.
Pick your you pick the important battles. Yeah, but you see something that, you know, needs to be addressed. One of my great coaching tips came from my grandmother when I was a kid playing baseball. Her deal was I had a bad game. I know that's hard for you to imagine as I start the story with that. Had a bad game, and I walked off the mound or walked off the field and had my head down. And my grandmother picked her spot. She came to all my games but never said anything. But that day she said, I don't ever want to see the top of your head ever again on a baseball field. And I can tell you that I remembered that from the age of 11 all the way through the big leagues. When I had a bad game, and I had many of those at that level, I made sure that my chin was up, my head was up, and I was looking up in the crowd as I walked off instead of putting my head down. And it was just a demeanor, coaching tip that came from a lady that cared about her grandson. So, and I'll never forget it. But she picked her spots, and I think that's what you have to do. And her theory was, if I put my head down, then that negative attitude will fester and get worse the next time.
She was a wise lady.
Very much so.
I mean, you hear that all the time now with coaches. And don't let that fester. Don't let it permeate with your teammates. And
I mean, you've already had a bad game. I mean, if you think negatively persistently afterwards, now you're affecting the next game.
Right.
So
end it, move on.
End it, move on.
1-2 the count on Kisner. Was Sosa at second base, and a call, third strike. We're through 8, and the Astros have the lead. It's 4-1. Recent shooting in Parkland, Florida, and the autograph caps will be auctioned online now through March 9th. Proceeds benefit the Broward Education Foundation, and you can help raise funds for the victims' families by bidding on the caps at cardinals.com/auctions. This is Jake Woodford, who's made a nice impression early on. Now, scouts had gone to Tampa's Plant High in 2015 to see Kyle Tucker, which is the player that Ricky mentioned earlier, top prospect with the Astros. But then they saw Woodford. And Tucker went 5th overall to the Astros, and the Cardinals drafted Woodford shortly after that, 39th overall pick, and signed him for $1.8 million.
The Astros, by the way, that year, I was just reminded, they were not able to sign their draft pick the year before, their first-round pick. So they got a second-round pick because they couldn't sign. That's the rule. You don't sign your pick, you get a pick in the next year's draft. And they got Bregman, number 2, and then Tucker, number 5. So they got the 2nd and 5th. It ended up turning out being a pretty good thing that they couldn't sign their number 1.
They had a couple of issues with number 1 picks. Pitchers.
They did.
That they signability and then didn't pan out. And it really, to an extent, benefited them.
I think it did in the long run. But it's always good luck for a guy like Woodford, who happens to be, and I don't say luck because he earned it, but in a place where they're coming to watch somebody else and you happen to open some eyes yourself. He was an ERA champion last year in the Florida State League with the Palm Beach Cardinals, who were the co-champions of that league.
So if you're wondering, Peoria is low A and Palm Beach is high A. And his record was 7-6. Now people say don't even look at records, look at innings and ERA and those types of things. He had 39 walks and 119 innings pitched. And a grounder that's pulled foul. Nationals will be here tomorrow. And Luke Weaver will get the call for the Cardinals. Like to see that. Young fan gets a souvenir here at the ballpark. Sitting there with his brother.
You talked about parity in baseball, Dan, and I agree with you, and that's what makes the game great. And there are other sports that I don't believe have the same level of parity that baseball has right now. I think if you had to be pushed and say, okay, who's got the best chance of being the National League champion and the American League champion? I think you're talking about the team we're playing today in the Astros, and maybe the team they're playing tomorrow in the Nationals. It's going to be a good ball club. Of course, the Dodgers will be too, but you still have to play it.
What's interesting now for me with the way that the format works is just get in.
Well, I agree.
Get hot once you're in, and who knows. But when you look at what you have on paper,
right.
That's Garcia in left. It's hard not to like those teams that you were just talking about. Our Budweiser player of the game, Josh Lucas. And Ricky, you talked about his slider and getting better and better.
Downward tilt, down and in, and down and away, getting ground balls, getting strikeouts. Josh Lucas has impressed. Our Budweiser player of the game, and there's a called strike 3 on that same breaking ball. And everybody happy, including the manager.
8 strikeouts in 5 2/3 this spring. There's Jack Mayfield. And a ground ball that's bobbled at third and picked at first. Nice pick by Wisdom. See Mayfield, he wears a helmet with the protective gear in the front, and we were talking about Daniel Ponce de Leon and the ball that hit off his head. For Mayfield's scary situation, he shattered his left orbital socket when he was hit with a pitch below his left eye. That was in August. So, a couple of guys that have played in this game with some scary moments. There's John Kemmer. And there's a young man that was undrafted out of Oklahoma. And he hadn't appeared in big league camp until this season. He's now 27. One ball and one strike. Kemmer is 0 for 1. He struck out his first time up. Good tailing action on that pitch.
There's the tailing action, middle of the plate, now off the plate.
Kemmer has been in the system of the Astros for 5 years. Minor league outfielder. And he looks at a called third strike. And with that, it sends us to the bottom of the ninth, and the Astros leading by the score of 4-1. Time on Friday will be in Houston. That's at 5 o'clock. And a couple of games next weekend as well on Saturday and Sunday. Primarily weekend games for you, and hope you sit back and enjoy some Cardinals baseball. Brendan McCurry is the new pitcher. Came over from Oakland in the Jed Lowry deal in 2015. And last year was called up to AAA Fresno, went 4-2 as he appeared in 35 games as a reliever. And greeted with a sharp foul ball off the bat of Francisco Pena, the son of Tony Pena.
Jose Oquendo has grabbed the glove. He is now protecting down the left field line. He just gave it back to him. I think he thinks, I can use this glove a little better than you can. I wouldn't argue with that.
I wouldn't either.
Jose's teaching even how to protect the catcher. The ball got past him, so the pitcher standing there was a little slow, and Jose said, hey, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it.
Curveball, and it floats in for a strike. So 3 pitches and the first out here in the bottom of the ninth. The secret weapon.
So the secret weapon's down there, and so is the pitcher. And here's the ground ball hit hard, and oops. Not a very good play on the backhand, and Jose said, here, I'll help you. Here's how you do it. See, you got to get a good jump. Be ready. Always be ready. See? Ball's your feet. Oh, I love it. Oh, let's see how he does. There we go. There we go. He got it. The catcher's happy. You bet. Thanks for the protection. Of course, you catch the easy one. Now he's telling Jose, see, you just bring it into you. He's a little, you see, he's on the back of his,
yeah.
Not on the balls of his feet, though.
Got to get ready. He's not ready.
And the happy teacher. I love it.
Jairo Munoz at the plate. 1 for 3 with a double and a run scored today. 4-1 our score. No balls and 2 strikes.
Started to say the Astros bullpen's been pretty impressive here this afternoon. 5 straight zeros. They did give up a run in the 3rd inning, but a lot of strikeouts too. The Astros can throw a lot of different things at you, including Gudwan, who struck out the side last inning. Very impressive.
And that's a base hit. Second hit for Jairo Munoz. I don't know about you, but you get the feeling that Adolis, Garcia, Munoz, Mercado, probably missing a name or two, but they're going to go down to the wire in terms of seeing a lot of playing time for the major league staff.
Yeah,
not saying they're going to make the team, but yeah, Rosarena's another one, but you know, those guys will get a nice long look.
Well, that's why you want them here. That's what spring training's all about, getting a long look at those guys so you see what you've got.
And Wisdom pops it up for the second out.
You know, Dan, that experience actually will help them when they get to whatever level they'll be playing during the season, AA, AAA, whatever it is. This big league camp has elevated expectations, how you go about your business, what top level performance is all about. So when they go down there, they're just going to get better. That is a good look. Cameraman right on it.
He's been around. You're not going to fool him. That's Will down there in our camera well.
Will's from Puerto Rico, by the way. You didn't know that, did you?
I did not. I talked to Will for a little bit today, too, before the game.
And, of course, we're still hoping for full recovery for the people of Puerto Rico and just the devastation there. And follow Yachty on Instagram. You'll be up to speed on all of that. But just a tough thing.
This is our final game together this spring, as Rick Horton will shift over to the radio side.
I've enjoyed it, Danny.
I mean this sincerely. Games early on for the old play-by-play guy are a little bit tough because you're trying to figure out who these people are half the time. And
who's on first, who's on second, I don't know. Third base.
You make it easy. You're the best.
Oh, thank you, Danny. Enjoy doing games with you and look forward to another fun season.
A swing and a miss. Bader strikes out, and the game comes to a close.
Well, not many bright spots here this afternoon, certainly on the offensive side. Another strikeout of a Cardinal batter here. They did not put a lot of balls in play hard, but we did like the work of Josh Lucas and also Daniel Ponce de Leon out of the Cardinals bullpen.
So the Cardinals drop it 4-1, and we'll be back to wrap things up in just a moment.